Welcome to the Right Approach, sponsored by Cascades Golf Course. I'm out here on the patio here at Cascades with my guest today, longtime PGA professional Ed Mitchell. Thanks for being here, Ed.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
So Ed, you've been a PGA professional for 58 years. You've done a lot over your career in golf. Among a lot of other things, you founded Mitchell Golf Equipment Company. And you sold that back in 2016, and us here in the Jackson golf community are fortunate enough that you decided to retire and move back here to Jackson. You've been here since 2017. For those out there that don't know much about you, Ed, why don't you give a little bit of background on, how you started off in Jackson and kind of gone full circle and how you ended up retiring here in Jackson.
Okay, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I started at the age of 11 caddying at the Country Club of Jackson. Didn't know anything about golf. Matter of fact, growing up in Grass Lake, nobody played golf at that time in Grass Lake. So I was fortunate enough to fall in love with the game and continued throughout each summer caddying and then worked my way through the bag room. I turned professional in 1962. At the Country Club of Jackson and put in 5-year apprenticeship working for Chuck Smith, the head professional. And after that period of time, got my membership in 1967. And in 1970, I left Jackson to become the head golf professional up at Clio Country Club in Clio, Michigan. After that, I was spending some winters in Florida, in the Fort Lauderdale area. And I ended up staying down there at Bonaventure Country Club for 10 years. And then moved to Dayton, Ohio, and that's where we started making our golf equipment, our tools, our club making, club fitting tools. And we had customers all over the world and ended up selling that business in 2016 and moving back to Jackson full time.
Yeah, and you're best known for your work in the golf equipment industry, in building clubs and club repair and all that, everything that you did with Mitchell Golf Equipment. Let's talk a little bit about how you were on the cutting edge of that entire industry, and work yourself into a great position with the PGA Tour and particularly the Masters tournament down in Georgia.
Okay, well, as a golf professional, and it started out when I was still a teenager at the Country Club of Jackson, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't hit a 1-iron at 18, 19 years of age, and I realized that I couldn't get the ball up in the air because the lie angle in the shaft looked to be way too flat, which is the way clubs were made then. So fooling around with a vise and a hammer, I was able to make that 1-iron a little more upright to the point where finally I was able to get the ball airborne. And that stuck with me all my life. And in 1990, thereabouts, 1988, when it really started, there was an interest in custom club fitting. There was, if you will, a cottage industry to the major OEMs where companies were making components and selling them for the do-it-yourselfers to put clubs together. And it just so happened that I knew that the Loft and Lie bending machines that were prior available in the marketplace were not accurate. They were not capable of bending cast golf clubs. And I set about developing something that would work. And as a result of that, we hit a home run, and it just kept mushrooming along with the growth of custom club fitting. And we even ended up developing a tour van. We followed the PGA Tour and did custom work for major club companies. And as a result of that, the Masters, Augusta National, they decided to invite me to come down. I was an invitee, by the way, yeah, like the rest of the players. But anyway, we went down there every spring and did the club repair and adjustments for the tour pros that played in the Masters for 27 years.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable to have that kind of opportunity. What was it like being able to work on the clubs of all the top PGA professionals? You've even worked on Tiger Woods' clubs.
Yeah, we did. We used to have a contract with Titleist, and when Tiger came out on tour, we were doing his repair work in our tour van. But at Augusta, I'll tell you a cute story about Tiger and his putter. One day, his caddy, Stevie Williams, came into our repair shop, and asked us if we could straighten out the hosel. The hosel and the putter and the face were offset because somehow it got bent, and I'm not going to speculate on how that happened. But at any rate, we had to set it up. And the trick was to put it in one of our putter bending machines to clamp the head in a square position. I took a crescent wrench on the neck of the hosel of the putter, and I literally twisted the hosel until it lined up with the face of the putter, and set the loft at 3.75 degrees and the lie angle at 71.5 degrees, and gave it back to Stevie. And 3 hours later, when he came back by, he said, "Everything's good." So that was an experience with Tiger. But yeah, we had a lot of experiences at Augusta with different players. Jason Day was one, and Bernhard Langer among many, where we used to grind a lot of his wedges every year just for the Masters. And the strangest thing that ever happened was one day I showed up on a Sunday afternoon like I usually did, and Jason Day's caddy, Colin, says, "Oh, glad you're here. We got a problem. We need your help." And I said, "All right, what do you need?" He says, "We need 5 more yards out of our 6-iron. You know, I was kind of dumbfounded. "You need 5 more yards?" "Yeah, 5 more yards to carry." I said, "Okay." So I got his 5-iron, 6-iron, and 7-iron, spec'd them out. I asked Colin what he had done to the 6-iron, just to give you an idea. He said he de-lofted at 2 degrees, thinking he's going to make it fly further, and then he made it a couple degrees upright, thinking he's going to launch the ball with more spin to make it fly further. Well, that was just the opposite. What I did was put the loft back to normal. I put the lie angle down to a degree flatter than what it originally was, and we went down to the range with the TrackMan, and the very first shot Jason hit was 5 yards more carry.
Wow.
Right on the button.
That's why you're the pro, Ed.
Well, and you said it was an opportunity. I feel it was a privilege and an honor to have been at Augusta for 27 years.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're the only guy that can say that. And your equipment, you know, that you helped create, you know, is now the industry standard for loft and line machines. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's been for, you know, since the early '90s, #1 in all the tour vans, and of course we had customers all around the world. Every country in the world that had a golf course had a customer of ours where we sold them equipment. And I'm talking about Estonia, Pakistan. I mean, every place. It's amazing. But big market besides the U.S. for us was China. I mean, Asia, you know, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, places like that. They were a lot of big-time golf enthusiasts there, and we had a lot of customers over there.
That's great.
I didn't speak the language, but we did make a lot of sales.
Well, let's kind of transition into, you know, what you're doing currently now. Like I said, you've retired here in Jackson. Although you're not retired, you're still doing a lot of work. And you're a member at the Country Club, and I understand that you've been appointed the Country Club historian to kind of prepare for the Country Club's 100-year anniversary next year. And I think you're learning a lot about, not just about the Country Club, but about Jackson golf in general, and how golf got started in Jackson. If you'd like to, you know, explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm very happy that the club has chose me to help them with the centennial that's going to take place next year. How I really got involved with that is I've always had an interest in history of all sorts, but having been a Jackson native, I felt it was important to learn more about golf in Jackson, and that started 15 years ago. And knowing that the Country Club was going to be 100 years old in 26, as far as the golf course goes. So anyway, I started doing research for the last 15 years, and what I've discovered was that golf actually started in the city of Jackson on a 17-acre Civil War park at the corner of Ganson and Wisner, North Wisner Street. Okay, there's a Speedway Shell station there and some industry, and you go on down to North Street and you go up on a little hill there. But in 1898, some enthusiasts laid out 9 holes, and they did that in 98 and 99. And it was becoming so popular that in 1900, they formed the Meadow Heights Country Club and built a little clubhouse up on the hill by North Street, up on that property. And so that kept growing, and in 1905 they ended up building a golf course and 9 holes and a clubhouse out in Vandercook Lake area, right between Probert Road, Hinckley Boulevard, and Francis Street. And there was a piece of property in there where the canal ran through it, and they literally built a 9-hole golf course, and it operated from 1905 until 1929 when they finally subdivided it. But what happened during that period of time was that the members decided they wanted 18 holes, and they didn't have enough property to do that, so a group of them decided to look for another site, which they found on Horton Road. And in 1924 they made the provisions to buy some property, and January the 8th of 1925 they officially formed the Jackson Country Club. And when they did that, it took them from that point until early of 1926 in order to open up the golf course. And they hired Arthur Ham, who was an architect down in the Detroit area and also the pro at Plum Hollow. And he came out and laid the golf course out, and they started construction and had it playable. I think they opened the golf course something like June the 20th or June the 18th of 1926. So that was the beginning of, short thumbnail beginning of how golf evolved. But in between all that, we had Sharp Park was built in 1923 as a 9-hole golf course. It turned into 18 in 1926. 1926 was a banner year for golf development. Hankard Hills started building a golf course. Clark Lake Golf Club started building in 1926. And of course, Sharp Park, as I said, added 9 more holes. At the same time, the Masonic Temple people, Masons, they had bought the property out off of McCain, and they had laid out a temporary 9-hole, and in 1926 they started construction on a full 18-hole golf course. So 1926 was a primary date for golf growth in the city of Jackson.
And now Cascade specifically, since we're out here at Cascades, we post 1929 as our establishment date, on all our merchandise. But the golf course did not open in 1929. Didn't open till 3 years later in 1932. And kind of what do you know about the history of the beginnings of Cascades Golf Course?
Well, William and Matilda Sparks owned 450 acres, which this golf course sits on, and it ran up to Kibbe and then, of course, over to where the Cascades Falls are. And they decided they wanted to donate that to, quote, the city of Jackson at that time as another park. And it was going to be if you will, a pleasant, feel-good park where you could come and meditate and just chill out and have a good time. And so there was no conversation at that time about building a golf course. But they evolved. They were going to have a big tower on the hill instead of the falls. They were going to have some lagoons around there. But eventually they decided on the falls. And at some point between 29 and 31, golf course came into the picture, and I haven't found anything where it references exactly when they decided, but in 31 they were building the golf course and they opened it in May of 32. And they used the clubhouse, what's called the Manor House. That was the clubhouse, and number 1 went off of there and number 18 came back to it.
Yeah, and actually, an interesting point that I was not aware of is that Cascades Golf Course and the Cascades Falls opened on the same day in May of 1932.
That's correct. Yep, the golf course opened in the morning and the falls opened in the evening.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. And the Sparks Foundation ran Cascades Golf Course until 1945 when they turned it over to the County of Jackson, specifically the County Road Commission, started operating it in 1945.
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, besides being a historian, like I said, you're still doing a lot of work here in Jackson. You're still doing club fitting. You're still giving lessons. You do some of that out here at Cascades at our driving range. And you've also been running some seminars out at Sharp Park Golf Course. Why don't you talk a little bit about those seminars?
Okay, well, what we, and again, like you said, the history is important to me, so I think that we need to leave for the younger people knowledge, and that knowledge is not only just in the history of the game, but also in the knowledge of how the game has evolved. And so what I've done at Sharp Park the last couple of years is using the simulators during the winter and spring months is to put on some couple hour, 2 hour long seminars where we've coupled it up with some food and beverage and made it a special event. For example, this year we had our Masters on Masters Saturday. We had our Masters seminar. It was about the backswing phase. Part number one was the evolution of the golf swing, and it was number one was the backswing, what has taken place with today's golfers because of the technology, the equipment that we have, and we followed it up with official food from the Masters. We brought food in. We had pimento cheese and barbecue and the whole 9 yards, and so we had a Masters party. And then we followed that one up with the PGA Championship, and we had some barbecue from West Texas Barbecue, and that was the phase two, or the part two, which was the downswing. And then the third one was the U.S. Open in June, Father's Day weekend on Saturday. And what we did there was talk about the evolution of putting, how putters have changed and the putting stroke has changed. Of course, that's all because of how golf course greens have changed. The speed and the condition is marvelous today compared to what we used to have 50, 60 years ago. So those seminars were conducted solely for the purpose of raising funds for the Jackson Golf Hall of Fame Scholarship Fund. And this year we raised $738 from those three seminars, and I need to give a shout out for Dr. Randall Penn, chiropractic, his chiropractic office. He was the one that was the major sponsor for the seminars.
That's tremendous, Ed, and a great benefit. Now, when you talk so much about, if you want to improve your golf game, yes, getting lessons is very important, working on the swing and the fundamentals, but also getting equipment that fits you. Because, you can have a perfect golf swing, but if your equipment doesn't fit you, then, it's only going to get you so far. It's really about matching up those two, having equipment that fits you and working on the fundamentals of the golf swing.
Well, and you're a prime example of that. We've spent some time together working on your golf swing as well as some improvement on your equipment. But you said exactly what I would say, and that is golf lessons will help you. Buying golf equipment will help you if it's fitted properly and built properly. So what I'm saying is you can't go out and buy a golf game. You can't go to the brand name that are out there, and I'm not trying to find any fault with all the equipment because the golf equipment today is the best it's ever been. The technology is there. I mean, look what's happened with the golf ball and with our drivers to allow us to hit the ball. I mean, I'm hitting the ball, within reason of where I was hitting it 20 years ago, with today's equipment. So anyway, technology is very important, but you got to know how to use it. And it's got to fit you. And so if it doesn't fit you and it's not producing the right, what I call swing principle reaction in your golf swing, which is timing, which is tempo, which is sequencing of your golf swing, then what happens is that you struggle trying to make it happen. It has to be a unit. Your golf equipment and your swing must come together as a one-piece motion to hit the golf ball.
And so the students that you give lessons to, you've laid out 18 swing principles that you focus on, and you actually have a grading sheet where you grade your students on those 18 swing principles. And so that way you can give them feedback on what they need to work on. We're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we're going to go out with Ed, and he's going to pull out some of his training aids and talk a little bit more about some of those swing principles. Welcome back to The Right Approach. I'm out here on the putting green at Cascades Golf Course with Ed Mitchell. Now, Ed, I'm kind of curious, with all the students that you work with, what are the most common kind of issues or swing flaws that you see with your amateur students that you work with?
Well, unfortunately, we see a lot of different things, okay? But we can actually narrow it down to some simple principles, swing principles that need to be addressed, and that is right from the basic fundamental of gripping the golf club. What I see most people, and I do mean most people, they have a bad grip on the golf club because they're not making the golf club part of their body. They don't make that as a unit. Instead, they see the golf club as something separate of them. And so let me give you a quick rundown on how you grip the golf club. Being right-handed, I put the golf club in my left side because if you stand naturally, your palms will face your legs. And so by putting my hand there and put the club over there, I just wrap my left hand around it. And the most important thing is that I've got the golf club underneath the heel of that left hand so that when I set it down in front of me, I can't see the butt of the golf club. That's your checkpoint. So many golfers, they're like this, and you can see the butt of that golf club. So is that golf club part of their arms, part of their body? No, it's a separate entity altogether. So by gripping that left hand and getting it on top and putting your right hand on parallel with that so that the palm is facing the back side of the shaft and therefore square to the club face, that will give you the opportunity to make the golf club and your hands and arms work as one unit. So that's the number one fault. The number two fault is in the downswing, and that is when people swing the golf club, they have the tendency to want to swing at the ball, and when they do that, they pull their arms in. Okay, so this is what you see a lot of people doing. Their arms literally pull in. When in fact, if you were to throw the ball, you don't throw the ball by doing that. You throw the ball by extending your arm away from your shoulder. So we got to do that with a golf club. When we start our downswing, we've got to make sure that the rotation of the body and the extension of the arms are forward of the ball and together. So we don't hit it by pulling our arms in. Those are the two biggest faults I see in most golfers.
I've got a little issue with that myself. I tend to get my body ahead, and then it just kind of comes like this,
right,
instead of posting up and having that extension.
Well, you're right, and that's what we worked on last fall when we were out on the range together, and that was what you just described there. Your lead arm, your right arm, the elbow was pulling up rather than allowing your left shoulder to go under and turn your arms over. Yeah. So that was he's a good candidate for correcting that.
Okay, what else? What do you got in mind? I see you brought a bag of tricks here. You going to show us any of your swing training tools here?
Yeah, sure. The thing that we have to identify with, and I didn't bring a golf ball, is that we have to swing the club down a path. So a lot of times I use markers like this, just a piece of cardboard, and put the ball right next to it so that when we're swinging down, we actually swing the club head out by taking our hands out to the ball, and then we release down that line. That gives us not only directional control, but it gives us that extension that I was just talking about. I refer to that as swing length, or arc length. Arc length is getting out here in front, like this, in front of your body. Now notice that my chest was over the ball when I came down. My chest is over the ball, and then my arms go forward and my chest is following. I'm still right in front. Here's where I started, here's where I am through impact. So that's an aid that I use to help with alignment as well as release of the golf club. Make sure that we go down the line.
Now, I want to pause there for a second because you talk a lot about, you just mentioned it, arc length. And then you also talk about arc width on the backswing. Something else I struggle with. I've always been just kind of very upright and steep. So why don't you, a lot of people might not know what you mean by those terms, arc width and arc length.
Okay, well, the thing that we have to do with the golf club, and you're going to be an example of that in a minute with some resistance straps, is we have to keep the golf club away from our body. And that arc width is to make sure that our arms are fully extended, meaning primarily our left arm. I'm not talking about ramrod straight. I'm talking about our arms are extended, keeping the golf club away from you. Look at the angle here I've got with my right arm. Okay, that's away from me. This is not away from me. So am I taking the golf club back and pulling it down? which breaks my left arm as well.
Yep.
So if I think arc width, I'm thinking about extension. It's going back. So how do I achieve that? I achieve that by turning the left shoulder under.
Yep.
I don't take the golf club head and move it and lift it up in the air, a la somebody we know.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we extend it and get that left shoulder to turn under, then we've got the golf club away from us, and that is arc width. And the vice versa, or the versa of that, the opposite of that is swinging forward and getting the arms here, keeping them together. And I have a device here that I use a lot for people. I call it a straight jacket for our arms, and we literally put this on, and when you have that on your arms, then you can't separate your arms.
Okay.
And that keeps you together here and keeps you together there. So there's lots of tools that we use. The other thing is, what is the path of the swing coming down? If I've got the golf ball right there, when I come down, I don't want to swing at the ball. I want to swing around the ball. So I use this ribbon to swing around the golf ball to get that extension I'm talking about. Okay. So it's another little training aid that we use. And the other thing that's become very popular with what I do with my students, in order to get that arc width and that arc length, is this is they call it gravity golf. And this is a device that originated in the astronaut program. So when you're in weightlessness, you have no resistance. So this is a resistance band that we're going to put on our friend over here. Even though he's left-handed, we'll allow him to do that. Only kidding. But anyway, Phil will show us how this will give you resistance in order to keep your arms extended with what I was just explaining. So what you need to do here is to put this right through here.
Okay.
And get the other one right through there. All right, now we're going to tighten that up. And what I want you to do, start with this one. I want you to put your fingers in there, thumb underneath of it, and now just turn your hand like that. Same thing over here. Under the bottom, right there. Now just rotate it over. There you go. Okay, so now if you were to take that golf club back, Phil, feel like you're going to resist that band and hold that club away from you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So push it away, and then when you come down, you're going to do the same thing with that forward extension by rotating through and to the ball, to the target. Just like that, 300 yards.
Straight, too,
guaranteed.
Right? Maybe you can even get me to hit a 1-iron up in the air.
There you go. So this has become very popular for those who tend to like to lift the golf club and wrap their arms in tight to their body. And so resistance training with a lot of the tour pros even has become popular because, you know, Cam Smith, this originated in Australia. So Cam Smith has been using it, and the whole idea is to keep that extension so when you get back to the golf ball, you're still in that same position you started in. So many golfers come up, come down, and come up. And that's not the golf swing. The golf swing is rotational. The golf swing is turn under with the shoulder, extend your arms, and under with the right shoulder and towards the target.
I might be borrowing that from you, Ed. I kind of like that.
Okay, we can do that.
Yep, I really like that. So what about if anyone out there is interested in lessons or club fitting for that matter, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, they can either call me on my cell number, which is 517-917-6220, or they can text me at that number, or they can get a hold of me at edmitchell@pga.com.
Yeah, and we have brochures for you here at the clubhouse. Like I said, you do give lessons out here at Cascades. So anyone can just call the clubhouse or stop out here and we'll get you a brochure of Ed so you can get a hold of them. Improve your golf game, both swing fundamentals and getting equipment that fits for you.
That's correct. And I just want to say thanks for having me do this, but more importantly, I just want everybody to know that I do this out of pure love for the game of golf. I just want to help people.
Yeah. And we are truly fortunate here in Jackson that you decided to retire. you know, here in Jackson. You have a wealth of knowledge, and so to have this kind of resource, have you as a resource in Jackson to help Jackson golfers, we truly are blessed.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thanks a lot, Ed. I appreciate you being on the show today. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching The Right Approach, brought to you by Cascades Golf Course.